Agent MCD, the final installment in the Mission Impossible franchise, is set to drop this weekend. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to watch, review, and rank the previous 7 Mission Impossible movies. It won't be an easy task, but you are the only man with the skills to do it, unless you count those other channels that have already done it and probably done it better. This message will self-destruct in 5 seconds. I already did a separate bucket list video on this movie, so I'll try to keep this brief, mainly because a lot of my thoughts are the same, only less rambly and more succinct. Start scripting your stuff, kid. You'll thank yourself. This movie was directed by Brian De Palma, and he really plays into the slow burn, tense espionage aspect of the story. There's a lot of intrigue, even if the twists aren't exactly surprising. Jon Voight is the bad guy? Who would have thought? To that degree, it feels like a TV movie with a theatrical budget. That's not to say that they don't take advantage of the extra money, because when the action hits, it's pretty awesome. The movie wasn't as good upon rewatch, but it's still a classic, and it kicked off this whole series, so I'd definitely say it's worth a watch. Mission Impossible 2 is a weird one, to say the least. It's often looked at as the black sheep of the Mission Impossible movies, and it's not hard to see why. It's directed by John Woo, who's best known for wildly over-the-top action blockbusters like Face Off. And while his movies can be entertaining for how overblown and insane they are, and while there are some moments in this movie that are entertaining for how overblown and insane they are, I don't know if he was the right fit for a Mission Impossible movie. Because the parts of this movie that are supposed to feel like an intriguing spy movie and aren't just Woo and Cruise stroking their own egos are really boring. The story is very stock, the characters are boring. The movie is also weirdly sexist in a way. The only lead female character in this whole movie is essentially used as a plot device. They don't bother giving her any character, she's just the sexy mole, which I honestly thought would look more like this. Honestly, if it weren't for the John Woo isms like the over-the-top action and bizarre editing, the movie would be pretty forgettable. As is, like I said earlier, it just reads like a Tom Cruise ego flex than a movie. It's fun, but forgettable. The thing that's kind of cool about these first 4 Mission Impossible movies being directed by different people is that it allows them to bring their own personal style and make each movie feel self-contained in a way. And J.J. Abrams mixes his signature shaky cam and lens flares with some admittedly great coloring and shots to deliver a fairly decent movie. Mission Impossible 3 was good, but I fully acknowledge that were it not for a few elements, it would be pretty mid. Firstly, I like how this story kind of grapples with Ethan trying to have a personal life and why that doesn't really work out for people in his line of work. Like I said, the visuals are pretty good and there are some cool action set pieces near the beginning and end. And while I don't think he was utilized nearly enough, Philip Seymour Hoffman was great as the villain. I love how there's just no bullshit with him. His dialogue is so matter-of-fact, and the way it gets to Ethan makes it sting all the more. Everything else about the movie was just kind of standard. It's another locating a bioweapon and trying to keep it out of the villain's hands while also being framed as a rogue agent. Outside of the stuff I mentioned earlier, there isn't a whole lot of interesting stuff going on. Like I said, the movie is good, it's just not great. Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol was directed by Brad Bird, and I knew I was going to like this movie from the opening credits sequence. And it just got better and better as it went on. This was a pretty fun movie. It raises the stakes even higher by putting them in a situation where they have to operate unprotected by the government. It keeps things very intense, but it also injects humor at the right times too. And it's not like the Marvel brand of humor where it's just quipping endlessly. It's the characters just naturally reacting to their situation. It doesn't take you out of the movie, and it doesn't overshadow the serious moments. The action scenes are very well paced. They are a bit long, but you don't mind how long they are because they're just so exciting. There were some great set pieces in this movie, from scaling the Burj Khalifa to chasing down a villain through a sandstorm. It's all so cool, and the way it's shot is incredible. They also do really well with the characters in this movie. I thought Jeremy Renner was a nice inclusion. It was interesting that he was kind of the hothead and the voice of reason at the same time. Seeing him and Cruise clash at various points was great, and seeing him get thrust into these intense situations was a lot of fun. And it was great seeing more of Simon Pegg. He brought a lot of levity without it sounding corny. Overall, I really enjoyed Ghost Protocol. I feel like the Mission Impossible movies have finally started to hit their stride, and I can't wait to see where they go next. Mission Impossible Rogue Nation is the first in the Christopher McQuadrilogy and follows Ethan Hunt and his team trying to prove the existence of an evil organization called the Syndicate. This one was really good, but I still think Ghost Protocol was better. The story felt like it struck a good balance between the high-octane action and the intense espionage, and it doesn't skimp out on one or the other. At first, I was worried that the movie would feel like a retread of Ghost Protocol because they're working without the support of the CIA, but it does enough of its own thing, and the threat is engaging enough to where it didn't fall into that trap. There are once again some great sequences in this movie: the opera house, the plane, the underwater scene. And what I like is that they managed to feel big and epic without resorting to blowing everything up. While I will kind of miss the tradition of having a new director for each MI sequel, I think Christopher McQuarrie does a good job here, and the movie looks very striking. Overall, while I didn't love it as much as the previous, I still thought it was really good. I know this is 7 years old at this point, but can we pour one out for Tom's foot? It was a trooper. Mission Impossible Fallout is a very close contender for best in the franchise. I still think Ghost Protocol is better, but damn was this awesome. It feels repetitive to be praising the stunts over and over again, but not only do they keep getting better and more insane as the films go on, but the fact that Cruise is doing so much of it himself is insane. From running across rooftops to chasing helicopters through a mountain range, whatever drugs this man is taking to allow him to be able to do all this stuff, I need them. But it's not just a mindless action movie. The story in this is really good as well. Yeah, the mission aspect has started to get a little convoluted with all the connecting threads and double crosses. And honestly, if I wasn't watching them one after the other, I'd probably have an even harder time following what was happening. But I like how the last few have dealt with Ethan's morality and the consequences of not being willing to trade lives. They touched on the aspect of IMF agents having personal lives briefly in 3, but this is one of the few times where you can feel the weight of that dilemma. The only other thing I'd really nitpick is that while I thought Henry Cavill did great in this movie, the twist of him being the bad guy was very obvious. And no, not just because they spoil it in the trailer. But other than that, I had a really great time at this movie. It was fun, it was interesting, it was intense. It's everything you could hope from a movie like this. And at last, we've reached Dead Reckoning. Once again, I've already covered this movie in a catch-up review, and it made my top 10 list for 2023, so I'll try to keep this brief. But goddamn does this still hold up. The threat in this one is probably the scariest of all of them. With the others, it's always been a person or an organization, something that can be pinpointed and outsmarted. And yeah, there is still a human adversary that Ethan has to overcome, but the fact that the main threat is an AI that can trick you and predict everything that you're gonna do feels more real and dangerous than any of the previous villains. Once again, they continue to up the levels with the action, and the fact that so much of it is done practically is insane. The characters are all intriguing, and the performances are all great. I'm so glad they brought Pom Klementieff back for part 2, because she was my favorite part of this movie. And yeah, it was overall a great, fun movie, and it gets me excited to see how they wrap it all up in part 2. So there you have it. Those are all 7 Mission Impossible movies. I've got my Letterboxd worst to best ranking on the screen right now for anyone who's curious. This was a lot of fun going through all these, and it gets me even more excited for the final reckoning. But let me know in the comments, what are your thoughts on the Mission Impossible movies? Which one's your favorite? Which one's your least favorite? How would you rank them from best to worst? And are you looking forward to the final reckoning? Let me know all that stuff down below. I've got more videos coming real soon, but until then, be sure to like, subscribe, ring the notification bell so you can stay updated when I'm posting. Follow me on all my social media, subscribe to my main channel. Everything you need to know will be in the description. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you later.